Hey guys, Brendan Productions here, and welcome to my 9th Java tutorial. And this Java tutorial is actually on integer arrays, which can be used to store multiple integers into one variable. So in order to better understand this concept, I actually drew this not so helpful diagram. So normally, without arrays, this is how you would do this. You would create 3 separate numbers, as in 1, 2, and 3, and then create 3 separate integers, each one to hold these different numbers. So you would say create an integer for 1, create an integer for 2, and create an integer for 3. And this can be a bit tedious at times because you have to create several lines of code in order just to hold 3 variables, if that made sense. However, when using arrays, which is what you're going to learn today, you can actually store these 3 separate integers into one variable with 3 slots, as stated here. Now, it's a little tricky at first to actually grasp the concept, but all it really is 3 separate integers inside of one integer. But you'll see more what I mean right now when we get into the actual programming aspect of it. So, first of all, let's talk about the uses of arrays. Arrays can be very useful when, for example, you're downloading from a database and you're downloading multiple rows of data, multiple tables as well, and you want to split all of these rows but keep only one variable with multiple slots. This variable can be in an array, and each separate entry in a field or a table of a database can actually be stored in a separate slot of the array. But right now we're not really working with databases in Java, so we won't really get on how to do that. But in later tutorials, we'll be working with databases and we'll get that done. So right now, we're actually going to create a little test application that loops through a bunch of numbers and assigns them to an array. So the first thing we need to do is create our main, so we can actually execute some code here. And then inside of this main, we're actually going to want to create a new array with, let's say for this tutorial, 5 slots. So in order to create an array, the first thing you need to do is actually declare the array type, which in this case, our array type is going to be an integer. So you just declare it just like an integer, int. And then you need the name for your integer. I'm going to name mine lowercase arr, capital INT, because arr is short for array, and this is going to be an array integer. And then in order to tell Java that you're actually declaring an array right here, you need to put down these little brackets, which I don't know if there's any name for them, so we'll just be calling them brackets in this tutorial, but that actually tells Java that there are multiple spots available for this integer. And then we're just going to type equal to new int, which is creating a new instance of this integer array. And then on this integer int right here, we actually need to open more brackets and give it a value of how many slots the integer actually has. So for this tutorial, it's going to have 5 slots. And then we're going to end that statement with a semicolon. So now in order to access these slots, we're going to actually use it just like a normal integer. So we're going to start by giving the first slot in this r integer a value of 1. So r int, and then we need to open the brackets, and this is where you tell it what slot you want to be putting this value in. Now, arrays actually run on a system of indices, I think is the plural form of index. Indices. They actually run on indices. So these numbers right in here are actually called the index of the array. Now, the interesting thing about indices is they actually start at 0 and go up accordingly. So this 5 slot integer actually goes 0 to 4, which is in essence 5 slots, but only 4 as the maximum value. Yeah, that's kind of strange, isn't it? No, not really, actually. But so what we want to say for this first slot is 0, and we're going to tell it to equal 1. And now that we're done with that, we can actually access this first slot by typing in system.out.println, and we're just going to type r or print r int 0 to print out the first slot of the integer. So if we run this application, we should get 1 printed out into our console, which we can test out now. And we do get 1 printed out into our console, which is good news. Now what we can do is we can manually tell this array to update all of its slots individually and then display them, or we can use lessons from our previous tutorials and make this a more efficient application by using while statements. So what we can do is actually create an integer. I'm going to call it I equal to 0 to start with, and we're going to make this integer go to 4. Okay, well actually we're going to make it equal to 1 to start with. And we're going to make this integer equal to 4, and you'll see what I'm doing with this in a second. So we're going to say while I is less than 5, or less than or equal to 4, then we are going to need to do the following. Yes, we are going to need to do the following. So what we actually want to do here is have I be equal to the slot of the array, and then we're going to have the value of that slot, actually the number of the slot in chronological order. So for example, the first slot, which is 0, we actually gave 1. So the second slot, which would be 1, we would give the value of 2. So we can do this by typing in r int, and we want to access the slot of I because we give I the value of 1 here, and we're going to give it the value of I plus 1, which would in essence here be 2. And then we're just going to increase the value of I, and this increases the value of I by 1, and then we're going to reloop into this while statement again. So it's going to say I is 1, so the second slot in this array is equal to 2. And then it's going to increase it to 2, so the third slot in the array is equal to 3. And it's going to increase it to 3, the third slot in the array is equal to 4. And it's going to increase it to 4, so the fifth slot in the array is equal to 5. And then it's going to add get over 4 and not do anything else. So then we are going to actually display all of these by accessing what's in the slot again. So we're going to system.out.println, and we're just going to type r int the first slot plus r int the second slot, which is 1, mind you, plus r int the third slot plus r int fourth slot. So really what we're saying is we're just counting starting with 0. So the 0 slot, the first slot, the second slot, the third slot, and the fourth slot is what we got up to on our while statement. So if we did everything correctly, then it should display 1, 2, 3, 4. Or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rather. So let's go ahead and test this out. And in our console it displays 15, because what it actually did is it actually did the math here. So it actually added 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5, which I believe is 15, but I actually am too tired to do that in my head. So in order to do this, we can type plus and then create a space in between each variable. And the reason it was adding them all together is because they are all integers. So that was essentially one big math problem. But the reason we can separate it with spaces is because once we insert a space in there, it turns this whole thing into a string. So they no longer add together arithmetically or mathematically. So now we can run the application. And we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Which, to test our previous thing, 5 plus 4 is 9, plus 3 is 12, plus 2 is 14, plus 1 is 15. Very nice. So we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because we declared those in the slots in the array. Now, this may have been a little difficult to understand for those who are new to arrays, but I tried to explain it as best as possible. And this is arrays in their most basic usage. You can definitely do much more complicated things with them, but right now this is all we're going to be using them for. I'm going to start a new thing and start posting these codes on BP forums for you to have a look at, so make sure you register for an account there so you can actually discuss this code and maybe figure out some problems you're having with it. Please remember to rate, comment, subscribe. URL for BP forums will be in the description. And if you really do have any feedback to give me, please leave it in the comments. I do appreciate anything my viewers have to say. Thanks for watching, and have a great day. Peace.